Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education for the Appleton Area School District. My name is Kay Eggert. I'm a board member serving as the board president. First roll call of fellow board members: James Bacon, Edward Ruffalo.
Here.
Christine Sauter. Here. Jason Kolpak.
Here.
Peng Tao. And board member Nick Ross, I believe, will be joining us shortly. Okay, please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reminder for anyone who may be viewing this meeting virtually, the materials can be found on board docs, which can be linked to through the district website. I am going to ask if board members have any requests to remove any of the consent agenda items for separate consideration tonight. Seeing none, then could I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The next, our special presentation, welcome to Aubrey Dietert, who is our student school board representative from Appleton West, going to share what's going on at West. Hi, Aubrey.
Hello. I know I just saw everyone pretty recently, but we have a lot of new things going on at Appleton West that I'm very excited to share with you. We'll see if this works today. There we go. For the first time in my education, we added a new drill to what we are used to: fire, tornado, and intruder drills. This new drill is the cardiac arrest drill, which was on February 3rd during homeroom. Usually this drill is done without students in the building, but this year it was done to replicate a regular school day. For this, EMS was not actually called, as they had used a mannequin as the actor. Doing this drill during the school day gave awareness to sudden cardiac arrest to not only staff, but students as well. Throughout our school, we have 3 automated external defibrillators in case of an emergency to restore heart rhythms. These are located in the school hallway by the auditorium doors, in the second floor copy room, and in the hallway by our Emmanuel gym. Personally, I think this drill was very important to implement with students around, as some students and even staff may not know what to do in the situation. Along with this, February 7th was National Wear Red Day to raise awareness for American Heart Month. We had many staff and students wearing red in support of heart health. With February coming to an end, it also means winter sports are near the end of their seasons. Our girls basketball team has their regional game tomorrow against DC Everest and hopes to keep their playoff run alive. Also, our boys basketball team has their final conference game coming up on Thursday against Oshkosh North, so we are cheering on both basketball programs this week. Speaking of basketball, some of our staff members had a fun time at the Teachers in Sneakers charity basketball game put on by the Wisconsin Herd. While they did lose to Oshkosh, Mr. Peters, Mr. Faust, Mr. Schultz, and Mrs. Bruner enjoyed representing West and playing against a former student, Will Mahoney. Along with basketball, both boys and girls wrestling has been doing well, as we had 2 girls and 3 guys who competed at the sectional tournament this past weekend. Also, Ben was awarded conference champion this season at 144. At the end of January, our boys swim and dive team beat the Appleton North and East team, and they moved on to conference and sectionals. Our Appleton United hockey team is also getting towards the end of their season, as they started playoffs last week. We had 2 special all-conference recognitions with 2 honorable mentions: Bert Kozlowski playing defense and Brandon Toback playing goalie. One of our newer sports that has become one of our most competitive being powerlifting. Their last meet before state was on February 15th, where 5 lifters took first in their weight class: Pedro, Trison, Riley, Addison, and Adea. Another one of our most highly recognized teams just recently finished the hockey season, which is our Adaptive Sports League. They fought hard in the championship game and had continued fan support throughout the season. We had our athletic mascot, Terry the Terror, go to state this weekend as well, and he had so much fun competing. Lastly, for athletics, something that I personally am super excited about is our new up-and-coming girls flag football team. Girls flag football is one of the fastest growing sports in the nation, spreading to high schools and colleges all over the country. Our athletic director, Mr. Miller, has been working with staff members, students, and the Green Bay Packers in order to get this team funded and functioning for May. So far, our competitors will be Appleton North and East, Xavier, Amherst, and possibly more. I know last time I said I would try to have more information on our newly added spring dance, and so I have a little bit of updates since our last meeting. It is officially named the Spring Fling Dance, put on by both our Student Council and DECA. This dance is coming up on March 15th, the weekend before spring break from 7 to 10 p.m., which will be held in our Emmanuel gym. Another exciting event coming up the weekend before spring break is our second annual talent show. This event is put on by Ms. Cittadino, and it gives all students the opportunity to come together, have fun, and show off their talents. Another thing we are always proud of at Appleton West is our academics. In January, we had many academic opportunities, 2 of which were brought to the Performing Arts Center. While the Lion King was still at the PAC, Ms. Luke and Mrs. Myers brought different student groups to experience the amazing show in person. Along with the Lion King, our multilingual learning students had an unforgettable field trip at the PAC as they saw Cirque Caliente, Africa, and Cirque. An upcoming event that is being held at Appleton West is our construction trade fair event on Wednesday. This provides students with hands-on activities to learn and experience what construction trade is like. A really cool opportunity that this provides is the experience at a true construction site, as we have our new athletic building in the middle of being worked on. At this event, there will be tours that will provide an in-person experience of a true construction site for students interested in construction trade. The Majorly Feared ACT is also coming up for our junior students on March 11th. To make things a little less stressful, we have 3 different dates for the ACT boot camp, an opportunity for juniors to learn new test-taking strategies and ask questions before they get to the real deal. If you remember back to my first presentation, I talked about our outstanding senior, Mark Wisniewski, being named a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist. Now he has been recognized as a finalist for the scholarship. This is for students who achieve top scores on the PSAT, receive a principal's recommendation, and continue with strong academic performance throughout their high school career, making this a very proud moment for everyone at Appleton West. We also had our 10 January Students of the Month chosen, all of whom showed academic excellence throughout the month of January. A huge change in our grades from first semester of last year to first semester of this year has also been shown. We have seen a 5% increase in our grades of A's, B's, and C's, and also a 4% drop in our grades of F's, which is proof of the hard work all of our students at Appleton West have put in. Along with academics, we also have growing clubs and organizations throughout Appleton West, all of which we are extremely proud of. Mock Trial took second at their past competition, qualifying for state for the 2nd year in a row, which will take place in March. Also on March 3rd, the math team continued to grow in numbers as there were many new faces, and Mark Wisniewski took 2nd place. With Black History Month being this month, our BIPOC club also put on a celebration this past Saturday with Trina McCormick as a guest speaker, who is head of research and development at Kimberly-Clark. Right now, we have 10 students in Lake Geneva that are at state for DECA competing to go on to the national level. They're there until Wednesday, and they will find out awards before they leave, so we are cheering them on as well. On Valentine's Day, we had 2 different clubs celebrating the Day of Love, Key Club, who made Valentine's Day cards, and Poetry Club, which made Valentine's Day poems. Also coming up, Poetry Club will be hosting a 2nd annual poetry reading at Copper Rock sometime during the spring. I went to this last year and read a poem and personally found it super cool that we could come together to feel emotions and laugh at the words we put together. Lastly, our National Honor Society is putting on the Spring Blood Drive, which provides blood for patients that need it and, in reality, saves lives. Coming up this week is also our parent-teacher conferences, which we hold twice a year. These conferences are on Wednesday and are being done through Google Meet. Students and parents are able to find these links on our Canvas announcements posted by each teacher. That's all I have today. Thank you for listening, and your time for listening to all of the new things going on at Appleton West. Does anyone have any questions?
That was a great report. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I mean, it seems like you covered probably all the opportunities. I shouldn't say all the opportunities, but certainly a wide range of opportunities.
Yeah.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the answer, it's really fine.
Mhm.
But the ACT boot camp,
Mhm.
do you think that students participate or they want to take advantage of that? Because it is an elective, excuse me, it's an elective opportunity, right?
Well, since I'm a senior this year, I had the opportunity last year to do it. I really enjoyed the opportunity to learn kind of what different test taking strategies were and to have the opportunity to ask questions to a professional that was knowing what he was doing about it. So I personally think it's a great opportunity for all the students. I'm not totally sure how many juniors are doing it. If you want, I can try and find a report.
No, that's okay. I was just
Yeah.
curious. I know that that these opportunities are provided. And I'm assuming that it's staff members at West that lead these sessions. Is that correct?
I believe last year when I did it, there was someone who came in from an actual like organization who was
Oh.
professional on that. But,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, so it was really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks so much. Now we are going to move to public input. It's an opportunity for individuals to share some thoughts with the board. And we do have a number of people who have signed up to speak tonight. So before we get started, I am going to just go through a few reminders. I do this every meeting when we have public input. It's just, we feel like it's important that you understand what we are, that these reminders actually come from board policy, 187. First, individuals may speak for up to 3 minutes. We will have a timer going on the screen so you can keep track of your allotted time. We will adhere to the time limits, but please know any comments exceeding the allotted time may be submitted to the board in writing. The school board respectfully requests that speakers refrain from presenting comments that introduce complaints or concerns that are directed toward or that identify individual staff members or individual students. As such, personnel-related and student-related matters implicate a variety of rights that require careful attention. The district has established alternative procedures for appropriately addressing such complaints. Generally, complaints or concerns should be channeled through the district complaint procedure, which is policy 870. Any further questions regarding this may contact the Office of the Superintendent with help determining how to pursue a concern. Please keep in mind that speakers retain all liability for their comments and conduct. False statements or stigmatizing charges may subject an individual making such statements to legal repercussions, including but not limited to defamation claims. Conduct that is disorderly or any speech that is obscene, threatening, harassing, or defamatory is not permitted. And in addition, the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law allows only brief discussion of topics that are not listed on our agenda, and therefore we may not be able to fully address comments that are shared tonight. So with that, the first speaker is Dana Churgi. If you want to come up to the podium, I said it right? I had a little help. Board member Jason, you can come up to the podium and then there is a microphone. And if you can just make sure that the light is on and then people will be able to hear you.
All right. My name is Dana Churgi, and I have a son who is an 8th grader at Madison and a daughter who's a 5th grader at Richmond. I am here today to speak on an issue that many middle school parents have been questioning. Nearly every week, we go to various middle schools for my son Keller, who is a 3-sport athlete, and we often talk to parents from other schools. While most of the schools we compete against have a system in place at the middle so their kids can lift to get stronger, prevent injuries, and be healthier, we do not. We believe East families and students should be able to have the same opportunities that other students have at the middle school, like in Kimberly and Neenah. Studies show the importance of weightlifting and keeping kids healthy and safe over cardio, but they also show that weightlifting helps with anxiety as well. We need to do what is best for our kids, and if that means adapting our curriculum, so be it. We feel that decisions as important as our kids' health should be made by those that have the most understanding about how to accomplish this. And it's hard to imagine that this has happened if we have so many different, if what we have is so different from Kimberly and Nina middle schools. I am thankful that coaches and teachers have stepped in to work with my son where the district has failed him, but that is exactly why I'm most concerned about my daughter, who is not an athlete, who will come to help her. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Carter Burnt.
Hello, my name is Carter Burnt. I am an eighth grader at Madison. I play football, basketball, and track. My dad brings me to Crunch every week to lift, and I have been able to see how much that has helped me in sports. I wish we had a weight room at James Madison so that I would be able to lift with my teammates so we could push each other to get better. It also would be easier to lift right after school so I could go home and eat and have time to work on my homework. Thank you for listening to us, and we appreciate everything or anything you can do to help.
Thank you. Next, Kyan Vray. I'm sorry, is it Vra? I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Kyan Vra and I am in the 8th grade at Madison Middle School. We are here today to ask the district to put a weight room at our middle school. We are both multi-sport athletes and we compete all over the Fox Valley. One thing I noticed when we look at schools like Nina, Kakana, West Appear, Hortonville, and even Kimberly, they all have nice weight rooms, and that's why I believe some of those schools have an advantage on us, and why their kids are bigger and faster and stronger than us, because their equipment is better and our coach is always telling us to lift to make us better and make our body and muscles stronger so we don't hurt ourselves. But it's hard when we don't have good weight room. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next, Christina Codner.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Christy Codner. I'm here as a concerned resident in the Appleton Area School District. And tonight I'm speaking on a couple agenda items. The first one is relating to board business, review of final reporting for science and social studies. I'm hoping to hear some a further discussion on this among the board tonight. And reviewing the documents, I found them very concerning. Specifically, these are a file that reports on a review of results of monitoring of student achievement gaps for students of color with disabilities, students who are economically disadvantaged. And reviewing these reports really left me feeling some disappointment and feeling like I had a lot of unanswered questions. Specifically, it talks about whether or not we've rated ourselves as making reasonable progress or failing to make reasonable progress. And I'm unclear why we're comparing ourselves to the state of Wisconsin with our gaps, considering that the state of Wisconsin is the worst in the nation for academic achievement gaps among white and non-white students who are Black, and has been for over a decade, if not more. I'm hoping that we will take a look at that further and set the bar higher for our district and our city The second concern has to do with the review of policy 411.4, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in our education. I'm concerned that we are looking at amending this after a court ruling that's fairly recent. And I think that it's premature to be taking action on that. I think it gives an image that we might not support our students who are transgender or of different sexual orientations in our district. And I think we should hold off at a time when the partisan politics are really divisive. I think in our community, we have better values than that. And local government is an opportunity to keep partisan politics out of our district. I think we should take a stand on this. My last thing I'll say quickly, if I have time, I have 19 seconds. This today kicks off the first day of National Eating Disorder Awareness Week. It's an issue that I'm very passionate about and wanted to just let you know, because among our students, usually eating disorders begin at an early age, and it's an opportunity to develop them, as well as it being a serious issue that we can change policy to make a difference.
Thank you. Okay, next, Alonso Hodges.
Hi, I'm Alonzo Hodges. Oh, it's on. Boop, boop. Make light of it. Hey. No, my name is Alonzo Hodges. I have a son who was James Madison, who is a 3-sport athlete. I also coach football and basketball there as well for the feeder program. And I think that it'd be very beneficial for these kids to have an actual weight room where they can actually go and work out right after school versus going to like a Planet Fitness, or I take my son to Planet Fitness and some kids go to Crunch or whatever the case would be because there's no facilities for us. And if we're going to be able to compete with these other schools, then I think we should have one, and it'd be very beneficial for us as well too. So, because at the end of the day, our kids are our future and we want to make sure we have the best things for them. So that's why I'm here speaking today. So. Oh,
Thank you. And the next, Mel Davis.
My apologies, I was encouraged to sign up, but I don't have anything further to say at the moment.
Okay, then that's fine. Is there anyone else that is here that that has not already filled out a sheet to speak? It's not too late. Anyone else wish to address the board? Okay, then seeing none, then we'll close public.
I'll
Oh,
take one
okay.
moment. I just wanted to, I
Just
apologize.
make sure that is your microphone on?
It's on.
Perfect.
Okay. I did just, since no one else is going to talk, I do want to echo the, not falling into the partisan politics and allowing space for our trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming youth to continue to participate in sports as they so deserve to do so. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. On the agenda, later on, there will be 411.4 is on the agenda later, and I know that Mr. Hernandez will be speaking to that. So we'll have more discussion later on in the meeting. So, but thank you everyone for your comments. Okay, we are going to move on with our agenda. We are on number 6 on the agenda. And first, school and student services update, Dr. McQuaid.
All right, good evening, everybody. At our last board meeting, we brought 2 items of information. And tonight I am seeking consideration for those 2 items. The first item is on the superintendent's consent agenda as item A. It's our social studies middle school materials purchases for geography. And the second item is our media plan, library media plan, and that's item B. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. And then next would be personnel services update, Julie King.
Yes, good evening. Personnel Services has 3 items for the board's consideration on the superintendent's consent agenda. Those are items eight, C through E. They consist of 6 educator contract changes and 6 educator resignations. And I just want to take a moment because we do have 37 retirements from our educators. Those educators constitute just over 1,000 years of service to Appleton Area School District, and their knowledge, expertise, and experience will be greatly missed. 6 of these educators have over 35 years, with 1 with 40 years of service to Appleton Area School District. So these educators, their endless dedication, passion, and hard work have made a significant impact on countless lives, to so many students, families, and the community. So we just want to take a moment to congratulate those that are retiring as an item on our board item agenda. Any questions on the 3 items that we have?
Just a couple, Julie. Like you, I started adding up the years of service, but I got all the end, started getting kind of depressed. I hate to see so many great people leaving, but give me a little background. Is this more than normal, about the same, what you were as far as these 37 parties?
Yeah, it's exactly the same number as we had last year. And we're typically between anywhere on the low end of 25 to 40 is our average over the past couple years.
So I don't know the demographic profile of our employees. Perhaps you have a better handle on that. Is there anything that we should be concerned about? Like there's a high number of people beginning to reach retirement age now, more than would be normal. Just looking for some feedback on that.
I would say we do preliminary retirement reports every year, and we have about 150 educators, probably for the last 10 years, that have been eligible to retire, but around that 25 to 45 number of retirements per year. It is a significant amount of knowledge and expertise to lose. The highest year we had was 92. That was in 2008, if my memory serves me right. But that's one piece that we continue to monitor.
So do you have any concerns, anything you want to share with the board, or are you fairly comfortable where things are at right now?
I'm comfortable with it.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. We will move to the board's consent agenda, which is 2 sets of meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Okay, roll call, please, Kayla.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Nick Ross, Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Kay Eggert,
Aye.
and Peng Tao.
Aye.
And moving to the superintendent's consent agenda, Mr. Hartjes.
The superintendent's consent agenda includes 5 items for your consideration. The first 2 items, 8A and B, were reported on by Dr. Martin Quaid during the school services update. And then items 8C, D, and E were reported on by Julie King during her personnel services update. And I recommend approval of these items 8A through E.
I move we approve. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Kay Eggert,
Aye.
Peng Tao,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Chris Sauter, and James Bacon.
Moving on to reports. First, business services report. Holly Burr with current year budget update.
There we go. Good evening. And as I think you all got this PowerPoint before, but Kayla will pull it up for us. So tonight we want to just take a few minutes for a mid-year budget update for the 24-25 year. We will be looking at financials through the end of December. I included in their packet the next several slides that we're gonna look at first are actually from the budget presentation in October. So if they look familiar, you have a pretty good memory. I included them just as a reminder of what we had discussed and what was approved in October. I'm gonna touch on these first 3 or 4 just very briefly, but I included them for your reference in case you wanna go back. Just thought this would be an easier way to do it. This first one here is just a reminder that the total overall budget for all funds, including the capital construction, was projected at $336 million this year. That included about 65 million in our construction projects. This next slide is just a summary of the aid, the projected aid, the revenue limit, tax levy. So kind of on the revenue side, including the debt repayment, and a reminder that the mill rate of $6.10 is the lowest we've seen in 40 years. Is that work? Thank you. So just following through then again on the revenue side, our total budget that we approved for the 24-25 year was 214.3 million. And we included just a little bit in statistics there for state aids and federal grants. And then on the expense side of things, our total budget that was approved for the year, 125.3 million. And again, the largest increases, of course, were in staffing, benefits, and then in purchase services. Now, some of those, the staffing increases were largely due to the referendum approved positions, so STEM, administration for Sandy Slope, and maintenance at the middle schools that had just been completed. And then purchase services, increased costs, transportation, utilities, insurance, and some contracting that we're doing at for special education positions that we're not able to hire in-house. Moving on to the update then, kind of where are we at? So again, we are looking at totals through the end of December. So we are technically halfway through, or 50%, the bottom number up there, of our fiscal year. We have only received about 26% of our revenues, which is about 55.6 million of our 214 million. That is fairly normal. This next chart then is basically just a snapshot of progress as we go. So the blue line is the total for the year. So that should look, you know, a lot bigger than the rest for right now. The projected is based on a formula, and which is the gray line, and then the orange is actual year to date. I use a budgeting software to try and predict where we will end the year. It's based on historical trends as well as the current approved budget. Its name used to be Forecast 5, and it's basically a forecasting software. I like to chuckle a little bit, which I think that fits because it's about as accurate as a weather forecast. I jest a little bit. You know it's coming, but you don't know exactly if you're going to get 5 inches of snow or 6 inches of snow. But you know when the snow is coming, right? So with this software, I do use it though to just monitor if something looks really out of line and then kind of do a little research as to why. So with that said, we'll move on to the expenses side. Again, we are halfway through the year and we have about 38% of our expenses have been incurred to date. There is a lag in the expenses. Teachers and school year staff payrolls don't start until September. So as of December 31st, we are actually only 1/3 through their payrolls. And then there's also a lag in billing. So we don't get December billing until January. So that's where it's kind of accounting. The 12-month employees, of course, start in July. So that's where we're at, the 37 versus the 33 of a third of the way. Again, this is very normal. We are well within our normal range. The 38 to 39% is right on target. This second chart I just pulled up again, just for reference and to kind of show you what the software does that I utilize. This is a year-over-year comparison. So comparing 23, 24 to now our year 25. And this is looking at the salaries expended July through December of each of those 3 years. So it is acting exactly as how I would expect it. It increased as we had increased compensation each of those 3 years. So this is one that I'd look at it and go, yep, it's exactly where I expect it to be. Talking a little bit, we talk a lot about the fund balance. And the fact that we like to keep that between 20 and 25% of our expenditures. So for the end of 23-24, so the end of June last year, we ended the year at 49.8 in our Fund 10. Our current year projected deficit, if you recall, is about 10.9 million. And that will leave us at about 38.8. For reference then, that would put us at about 17.2% of our fund balance. So a little lower than we like to be. And we will have to have some discussions in the near future about how to level that back out. So the expense projections then for the current year are currently running a little high. The current model is putting us at a higher deficit than what was budgeted. This is due mainly to the health plan for the last 6 months of 2024 calendar year, as we did not change the rates until January 1st. So we had anticipated that we might run a little hot for those first 6 months. I am hoping that it levels out in this year, in the next 6 months. But we will continue to monitor this. We're also right now getting some final numbers on some grants and the end of the year health plan costs. So for the 24 calendar year, we won't get those end of year costs till March, April, right around March, April. Then we'll know where we actually ended our 24 calendar health plan month, our year, sorry. So with that said, our current model is putting us a little higher than we had anticipated, with revenues, our expenses coming in higher than revenues at about 12.5 million. Again, I will keep an eye on that and let you know where that's coming at, after the next quarter is finished, hoping that that comes back down to what we had anticipated. And then kind of just again, a reminder of all the other funds. This is again, just the summary of the approved budget. All of these funds except Fund 39 are balanced budgets, meaning revenues equal expenses. And right now they are all running very close to their projections at this time. So all of those charts would be rather boring if I put them up there for you, so. Fund 39 revenues, are 14.8 million, so we levied, in our tax levy, 14.8. We have a payments this current year of 12.8. And then a 2 million for future debt payments. So we are gonna talk in the not too distant future about our final debt issue for the construction projects. And that 2 million will likely factor into that. Questions?
So if I'm recalling the tax base that we're currently have for taxing, our shortfall of 12,504,000 represents about $1 on the mill rate. We're at 610 now, 710 would balance the budget. Does that sound right?
Say that again.
So the 12 million that you're projecting over our $12 billion tax base would be we'd have to raise the mill rate $1, $1 per thousand to cover that.
To balance it,
So a $250,000 home, that would be $250 a year.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
If only we are allowed. We, of course, are not allowed.
Sorry. I've had more conversations with community members who are either more aware or have more of an interest in the voucher impact. And I'm wondering if you have any statistics with you now about the increase over the past few years. And if you don't, that's fine. And I'm assuming that the increase that you noted in this report was over last year. It was $843,286.
Yes, I would have to go back, and I can pull that for you and get that for you. But that is just from the prior year.
Okay.
So from 23, 24 to 24, 25.
And that's fine. I just think that there has been more interest in the community because of either publicity about it. But I guess it's just something that I've been thinking about a lot more too, and it has been quite an increase. So I appreciate that if you can do that anytime that works out for you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
One follow-up, Holly. What
Yes.
is our current projected shortfall in special education funding for this year? I think so. I'll repeat the question. What is our approximate projected shortfall in special education funding?
The budget is, we would need to transfer, I want to say 23 million.
So that represents almost double our current deficit.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we wanted to provide this mid-year update on our budget. And so as Holly said, for the most part, we're tracking where we had anticipated. But appreciate that you did mention the fact that this is a structural deficit budget. We know that we have to pull ourselves out of this deficit over the next 2 years. And so at our next meeting on the 10th of March, we'll start to talk about that. We'll share a document that we previously shared with you that showed this year, next year, and 2 years out where we think we need to go. Now, there's a lot of factors that play into that. Most importantly is the state budget. And so the state budget, it'll go from July of 2025 through the end of June of 27. That will be very important to us because we need to see revenue increases there, obviously, that outpace our increases in expenses, and then we'll have to make up the difference somewhere else. And so we've talked about some of the big things that districts are doing. really they're looking at closing schools, cutting staff, or going to operational referendum. And so we'll start to have those discussions. And we'll do that already on the 10th of March at our next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. Next, school student services report. Sherry Garvey.
Good evening. It felt a little bit like summer today, and we're going to talk about summer school. So each year, we bring to the Board of Education for you to approve our summer school courses. So I'll just give a brief overview and give you an opportunity to ask any questions and clarify. So we will have summer school opening for registration on April 14th. So we're gearing up and ready for that. High school registration will also begin on the 14th. We really rely on our school counselors to really help us through that process. Our basic dates were set a while ago, June 10th through the 3rd. And we will have a variety of different options for elementary, middle school, and high school, as you can see in the packet that you received. Pretty encompassing summer school opportunity. And so a variety of different offerings. We also collaborate with the Boys and Girls Club and our YMCA and our extended day learning programs to offer extended programs after school, and then also have that free lunch and breakfast. So not a lot of changes to what we've offered in the past, if that's a question in terms of that. We have a couple of different additional offerings in different offerings, but it looks very similar to the offerings that we had last year. So I won't spend any more time and leave it open for you to ask us questions or ask me questions.
Are there any additions to the offerings that you want to highlight? Because you said there weren't very many, but I guess if you could just share briefly, like maybe a couple of them, or like what made us make changes.
Yeah, so we had a couple of different requests from some of our charter schools. So VNS asked us if they could offer something for their students and some credit recovery and credit attainment for that. And then Omalade, in their first year, they wanted to offer something that was specific to their curriculum. And so every year we ask each of the sites to present or give a proposal, and then we take a look at what that might look like. Do we already offer something like that? We want to make sure that we're taking a look at that, but those are two that came through this year. So that's been great. We also made a couple of adjustments. We've been really working on building the different options that we have at the high school. We have now 4 different options for a variety of different needs and circumstances for our students, which has really helped us with credit attainment and credit recovery programs for our high school students. So.
Excuse me. Thank you. Also, can you remind me, do all of our schools have summer school opportunities located at the facility over the summer? Are there any exceptions to that? Like, I can't remember if only one high school hosts all the students looking to go to summer school, or they all have their own separate programs, then what it looks like at the elementary school level, if every school has one versus we cluster or something like that.
Great question. We are able to offer a summer school program at each site. One piece this year is ABS will have theirs at Columbus. Columbus will be integrated into Edison. That Nan's going to talk a little bit about that through the transition plan that was recommended and desired. And then at the middle school, we offer it at all 4 sites. At the high school, our option 1 is all at Appleton East. Option 2 is in all 3 of our high schools, working through our alternative program, smaller group of students, but through our alternative ed staff members. Option 3 is in all 3 high schools, but again, a smaller amount depending upon those students that need to use option 3. But for the most part, most of our students in option 1 is all at Appleton East. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
And then option 4 is also at?
Yes, option 4 is also a variety of different pieces. So we added that EL academic skills for some of our newcomer students. The Shakespeare Theater has been an offering that we've had. And those are all for new credit, or some are just for enrichment. So Paint the City again, Valley New School is the addition, and then eSchool So a couple of different other options. So there are actually 4 different options. Chris?
I noticed that there's a getting ready for 9th grade at East High School. Is that an option at other high schools as well?
Yeah, it's a proposal that came through and we'll try it in terms of taking a look at that. And if it's something that we really feel we need to, and it's really, I can give the example of how we did that at middle level last year. We embedded that into getting ready for middle school and we'll look at what that looks like. We know transition is always hard for our students, so we'll try that and see, and then we'll look at to see if that's an offering that we'll make sure we have across our 3 sites.
For this year, it will be
This
at
year it's
East and
at
then kind of
East.
as a pilot then?
Yeah.
Okay. I do appreciate all the options and opportunities for students, especially at the high school level, to obtain credits or, you know, to catch up, and seems like a great variety to meet a lot of needs. So appreciate all the time and effort.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
I just because similar, like looking at all the options at all the levels, but especially at like the elementary and the middle school level, we have quite a few. Are all of them offered at every site, or is it, you know, I'm assuming some of these need some critical mass, obviously, to offer them, I suppose. And so what happens if, you know, only one kid signs up for beginning woodshop at one of the elementary schools, but maybe another school has 15, you know, like what does that look like, I guess, and how do we navigate that with
Yeah,
families?
we do want to make sure that the experience is great for a student, so we'll monitor those numbers, and if we need to combine certain groups, and we do monitor, and if we haven't seen the numbers in the past years, we just haven't added it for this year. So we make those changes along the way. We haven't had to do that though. We really have had some good success, especially at the elementary. Woodworking is a class that really fills up. This board member Sauter knows that. So yes, we monitor that and we have to make some decisions, but we've been pretty successful. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have been pretty successful at the elementary level, offering all of them at all sites. Had too many instances of that.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
I just want to add, Sherry, every year when we get this list, I'm always so impressed by the variety of the course offerings that we have. So thank you to you and the people that really work hard to put this together. I'm sure it's well received by the community and a lot of great programs for our students and to continue their studies in the summer. So I think that's just every year I'm impressed by that list.
I have to acknowledge the summer school team. Todd Kadoff and Carrie do a tremendous amount of work in our summer school coordinators. We have really built some leadership skills with our summer school coordinators to really build their leadership skills and really take on that challenge. So it's been great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And also under school and student services, little update regarding the Columbus Edison transition. Nan.
Good evening. I'm excited to provide an update on where we're at with the Columbus and Edison transition. Since the board decision on January 27th regarding the Edison boundaries, we have been working on forming a transition team and actually held our first meeting last Wednesday. The role of the transition team is to provide input on the transition plan that we will be implementing. And then after we start implementing those transition plans, to provide oversight for that. The team has 26 members, so we filled the library at Edison last Wednesday. The team is facilitated by Columbus Principal Joel Cannon, Edison Principal Katie Schmelzer, and myself. We have 10 staff members from both Columbus and Edison, and we purposely recruited staff members, educators, but also deans of students, school counselors, support staff, because we wanted to make sure we had input from all variety of staff. We have 9 parents from Columbus and Edison, and some of the parents that are on the team actually transitioned from Columbus to Edison this year. And we found that has been we anticipated it would be, and we found at that first meeting that it has been very valuable to have their voice in the room to talk with us about what worked well and what didn't. We also have 3 community members, including the Boys and Girls Club unit director, who is the unit director at both Columbus and Edison. A member from the historic Central neighborhood, as well as a member from the Lawrence City Park neighborhood. So, and then the 26th member is a district staff member. She is a coach with the Student Services Department that works at both Columbus and Edison. So that's been very nice because has a foot in both schools right now. We did, after the board decision on the 27th, the principals at Dunlap and Franklin reached out to the families that currently attend their school in those little rectangles and shared with them that their areas would be converting to Edison attendance area, and asked if they were interested in continuing at Dunlap and Franklin, and all of them were. So that helped us understand that as far as students in our buildings right now, we did not have to worry about transition activities for them. We're mainly focusing on the Columbus population. So as I said, we held our first meeting last Wednesday. The first part of the meeting was to take the draft transition plan that we had developed. Greg and I had developed it and then shared it with the executive team as well as the staff at Columbus and Edison. We brought that, actually, we gave them homework before the first meeting. They were able to go through that transition plan, and we asked them, what should we keep on the plan? Is there anything that we should not start, that we should stop and take off? And then what are some additional activities that we should start for staff, students, and families? And what we found, what the consensus was, is keep everything that's there. Don't take anything away. But then we had very, very rich discussion as far as other ideas related to transition activities that can occur in the starting in the next month through next September. All of these ideas were collected, written down, and then we got into smaller groups where we started to put them into a task list, trying to organize them by timeline so that we can meld this across the board, because we have quite a list of things that we'd like to do with staff, with students, with families, and also some administrative tasks. The second part of the meeting was to secure feedback on 2 Columbus family surveys. The first one we actually distributed last week, and that was to verify student enrollment for next year to see if they're planning on attending Edison, if they are moving out of district, school of choice, open enrollment. And so that was the first survey that we're giving. The second survey we will actually be doing in person during their parent-teacher conferences at Columbus on March 13th and 18th. At the parent-teacher conferences, by then we should have verification on which students are going to Edison. And then we will be doing some surveying with them in person related to such things as what are their transportation plans for next year? Do they need before and after school care, so we can get that connected, as well as we plan on developing a list of planned transition activities that we can collect their input on and what they would be interested in. And I should have said, with the previous survey that we gave out last week, we made sure to verify, we put a comment on there that if they would like any outreach from the district related to options related to enrollment, that we would give them a call. We sent it out electronically, but then the staff at Columbus were following up. They were sending paper copies out as well as we're following up via phone with all the families to make sure that we collected all of those. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday with a focus on finalizing the transition plan, and then we will be breaking into subgroups so we can actually put some meat on the bones of those plans, starting with the first items. We're not quite sure how this group will continue, if we will be breaking into subgroups and then, collaborating every so often as the plans get put into place, but it's very organic and we're going with the flow. Our plan is, after the next meeting, we thought that we would have enough decisions made perhaps by the end of the last meeting to publish that, and we're just not quite there yet. We need to meet with the group one more time. But after our next meeting next Wednesday, we will be publishing an update so that all stakeholders are aware of the transition plans that are in the works. I know Sherry mentioned summer school. That was one comment that came up during our meeting is based on the small number of enrollees at Columbus for summer school, they have not been able to offer all of the options. They typically had 2 classrooms, a primary and an intermediate for the 3 hours. One of the things that we heard from particularly those families that had transitioned this last year was that summer school was an amazing opportunity for the students to get to know other kids that are going to be in their class the next year. And so with that feedback, we moved forward and decided that we would be offering summer school for Columbus and Edison at Edison. They also will be having the before and after school program with the Boys and Girls Club, or excuse me, I should just say in summer school, it's just the after school in the afternoon program. But so there'll be opportunities both within the actual summer school classes, but also if they would be staying for after school for Boys and Girls Club, they'll have an opportunity to get to know other students that they'll be attending school with next year. One thing with ABS is as we move that Boys and Girls Club program over to Edison, we wanted to make sure that ABS also had that opportunity. So the Boys and Girls Club has a little van that they will be, any students that are in the ABS summer school program that are interested in wraparound care after summer school, they will be bused over to Edison for the afternoon. So a lot of some decisions, like I said, that we had to make in a relatively short timeline, but others that we're taking the time to make sure we do it right. That's where we're at. Any questions?
I appreciate having an update on this committee. And one question that I had is whether there's a process for community members or staff to share their thoughts with committee members in order to bring those forward at your meetings.
We tried when we put the 26 team members together to make sure that we had groups from multiple different roles. One of the things is it's two-way communication, and I anticipate when we send out our update that we will have a list of the people that are on the team to provide anyone with any additional information, or if they had any additional concerns or any additional ideas that they will have a way to get that to the group.
And it sounded like you're planning to do some sort of minutes or something like that would go out to both the Columbus and Edison community.
Yes, to the staff and to the families. We'll look to get it out multiple ways. We really, just the timing of the conferences for Columbus, knowing that they're in March, we'll have all of that. And we can certainly have a presence there to meet one-on-one with families if they have any questions.
And then do you have an idea of how many meetings that you'll be scheduling, or is it, I know you said it's organic and you're kind of waiting to see how things go.
Yeah, right now we've said that we know that this 26 member team will expand. There's other people that, for an example, we know that there'll be a group of Columbus stakeholders that will come together to talk about the celebration of the Columbus building and those sorts of things. So we know that what we'll be doing at our next meeting is finding out who on our group would like to be on that committee, but then we're going to say who's not here, and then form a subgroup and bring in additional stakeholders for certain projects.
Were there any items that you would care to share that were kind of a surprise that came out through the meeting that members were interested in making sure happen next year?
Yeah, I can just give a few anecdotes. The first one was summer school. We weren't planning on, and that came up as part of the discussion. So that was something, like I said, we had to move on right away from the feedback. But there were some great discussions about how do we make sure that that there's some traditions at Columbus that come over to Edison. At my table, we were broken into small groups, and at my table, we talked a lot about the bell at Columbus, that's been our tradition for fifth graders to ring the bell, and how that is a tradition that the kids, how could we carry that over to Edison? And so those were just some examples. We also talked about, like, for example, with staff, that we want to make sure that that they're prepared and that we know that we're melding two school cultures and climates together. And so taking extra time at the beginning of the year to work on classroom management, PBIS, making sure that all of the rules and expectations, that we give time for kids to learn them. And one thing, the Dean of Students at Columbus was at my group as well, and she said that they've already talked about for the last quarter of the year at Columbus, teaching the matrix from the PBIS matrix at Columbus. So it's eases the transition. So all of those ideas came forward, a lot of great ideas.
I appreciate that. And I just want to say that I was asked by several community members about whether I would be a part of the discussions or board members would be invited to attend. And I did reach out to Greg and was told that having board members present at the meeting might be intimidating for some and could hinder open conversation. And I understand that concern. I was disappointed because I do believe that we represent the community and we have, and this has been a challenging decision-making process. But I also do want to avoid giving the impression that the board's non-attendance suggests a lack of interest or a commitment to a successful transition for everyone involved, and particularly for our students. So I do look forward to receiving regular updates from the task force and just appreciate that that is going to go forward. So
Yeah,
thank you
certainly
for your work.
the minutes that or the update, I'm not sure the format will be exactly minutes, but the update that we provide, I certainly can have Greg or Kayla put that in their Friday update so you have it.
Do you anticipate then coming back to the board to report out?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'd be curious to hear what the other 6 board members think about the communication you need to receive or want to receive regarding this transition. So last year, when we were transitioning 6th grade, doing all the planning last year for transitioning 6th grade into the middle school, Sherry Garvey, assistant superintendent, came periodically, maybe once every other month. So be curious to hear, how often do you want Dr. Buno to be here to give an update? You want to see more updates through emails, or just looking at what you need to feel like you have a full understanding of the transition planning?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in because I was going to ask some questions and express some thoughts from what I've heard too. But to your specific question, I think given the short nature that this is all happening in the next several months, I think I'd prefer to have it come as soon as there's been a meeting at least. So if you don't meet later, but at a more infrequent cadence, I suppose. I don't want to make you come back and say, yep, we didn't meet and that's all we have to report. So, not necessarily that, but I would say honestly, like every board meeting or every time there's an update, because I'd rather get smaller frequent updates than wait and have a big update given how fast it's all happening at this point personally. And similar to Chris, I've had a couple people, but some that have been in the meetings actually and said good things. So I was going to express that to you. They said you were very prepared and anyway, all sorts of good things, but also other people that just don't know because they aren't in that room. And I think they do expect that us as board members have information that doesn't always feel like we maybe have. And so I think having this public forum, sometimes even to direct people to come back and watch the meeting if they want to hear the update themselves and just have more frequent and regular talking points personally, I think would be nice and helpful.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
I was gonna agree with James on that point. Then I wondered, like, how is the communication of what's happening during those meetings being shared to people in the community as well too? Like, sort of, what's the responsibility of the people who are asked to be on the committee to sort of share what's happening? So it's not, so many more people are actually aware of what's actually happening.
One of the things that we do know is we're able to certainly reach out to all of the Edison and Columbus families through the newsletters, and I'll rely on the principals to do that. They have their own traditions and culture as far as how they communicate with families. And we'll talk certainly about student communication as well. The tricky part is they aspiring, or not aspiring, rising kindergartners, the families in the Columbus neighborhood that don't have kids in our schools right now. And so we've been blessed with the partnership with the Historic Central Neighborhood. In fact, we're putting a little update in their next newsletter that's going out for March. So we feel that that'll be one avenue to reach families that have students but are not school age yet.
I guess I would just like to add that I think, updates on the transition are great. And I know that there's been some discussion among board members during these meetings about the process of the Columbus decision and community engagement. And I just want to, I am really grateful for the group of neighborhood parents and community members who advocated for what they wanted out of this decision. And also, we are only hearing from one portion of the families and students who are in that attendance area. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, yes, we do need to be responsive to the needs of our community. And when they advocate for something, we should respond to that. And I do appreciate the way that administration is engaging with the community groups who have advocated around the Edison and Columbus decision. And there are many other people who are not part of those groups. And so we need to also remember that, and that the folks who are showing up aren't the only ones who have questions or concerns. Finally, I've heard from some board members about their concerns about the timeline of the decision-making process. And I want to remind my colleagues that, this didn't necessarily come out of the blue for us either, in the same way that it didn't for anyone else in the community. Like, we have known prior to any decision being made that discussions about Columbus were ongoing and going to continue to happen. And so, if there is an issue that any individual board member has with how communication about these decisions has been made, we also need to examine our own self in that, because we as board members are also a part of this. And we also have had knowledge and have had the ability to reach out to community members and do outreach as well. So that's all I have to say about that.
Anyone else? Okay, so do you have enough, heard enough as far as, I just want to say thank you. I mean, it sounds like you've really put together a good team, and so happy to hear that you're well on your way and working on the details of the transition. So thank you for your leadership in that.
Yep, agreed. I just wanted to also throw in something else really quickly too. So again, just to reiterate, heard good things about people that were involved in the meetings. One thing I just thought I'd highlight that I don't know for sure is happening in the meetings or on the next agenda, but is just potentially looking at what other, because I don't know that many people actually other than staff members in that community would maybe know this, but maybe doing an audit of other district or school procedures and processes that might impact or overlap with in a unique way to the circumstance happening here. The one example I have is I had someone in the community reach out that is not currently a parent, but is going to be a parent of a kindergartner next year, and got an email that confused them because they're currently in the Columbus district. And so they thought, I don't know all the details, but I think it might have been an example of coming from a normal email like the school sends out to potential people in their jurisdiction. And I think they knew what was going on with Columbus, but it felt like it kind of was out of order. And then they got very confused by the message, I guess, instead of feeling like it was an easy to understand and navigate situation with understanding what they might choose for their student next year. And so I'm sure there's just plenty of other things like that, like timelines with applying for open enrollment versus charter schools, or what kinds of communications we send out at different times that to us are just the automatic, and we don't do this transitioning students from one school to another in this manner very often. So I just wanted to throw that out there on the radar. If it's not already happening, might be a good space to have that conversation in that group.
And that did come up, and I was very appreciative that it did at the meeting,
Okay,
or
great.
actually after the meeting. But shared with me, because then we could track it down. What it ended up, all of our school secretaries right now are reaching out to our incoming kindergarten to verify that they are planning on attending. And so it was a very innocent thing, but it turned out to be very confusing. And so it was a good wake-up call, I guess, for us to analyze, as you said, just normal procedures, but we have to look through the lens of the Columbus families coming over. We want them to feel welcome and not confused. And so it was actually, I'm glad it happened early so that we were able to look through every decision as we move forward.
Yeah, that is great. I'll double clarify. I personally, and I didn't even get the impression the person who brought it to my attention thought there was anything malicious or intentional there. Rather, just, I know this is a place where things can already be a little confusing for people to navigate the system. So I wanted to just make sure. So anyway, I'm glad it got brought to your attention or the group's attention. So thanks.
Thank you. We are going to move to board business. First, Kaleidoscope contract renewal. Ebony Grace and Alex joining.
Greetings, everybody. I do have a crew of folks behind me. I'll introduce them in. But again, my name is Ebony Grice. I serve as the Assistant Superintendent of School Services, and I work with charter schools through the authorization process. And so tonight, we're going to bring before you 2 charter schools who are going to be seeking a 5-year renewal. Before they start, however, I want to just reset the foundation on the process so that we can have a clear understanding of what they're going to present, and then what they may want to present to you tonight, and what questions you may have for them. So the AASD charter school contract renewal process ensures that charter schools demonstrate their effectiveness in alignment with district goals. As part of this process, the schools tonight will provide a comprehensive data on student achievement, growth, and post-secondary success when it's applicable. And then along with those qualitative insights into their mission and vision and their unique attributes, which is why we have charter schools for those unique options. In response to the Board of Education, some feedback you all gave us last year was to have a more cohesive process, if you will, when schools are going through their data and presenting. And this is our first step at it, and we're still working to be able to build a stronger process. But we are happy to say that we took that feedback to be able to provide a data collection process for all of our charter schools to follow, so that they're following the exact same process tonight, in addition to a checklist process. So everybody, when we're working with them, we're giving them the exact same process. So we're proud to say we took that feedback from you, and we'll continue to take your feedback as we try to strengthen our process. The other piece is the renewal checklist, and then the data collection guidance document. We made sure that it was aligned to our mission and vision and what we want with our authorization for charter schools, so that when they're putting together their information, it aligns. And then the other piece I think is really key here is that they're going to talk about student access and school culture data and continuous improvement, which we know we want for all of our schools. And then the other piece here, of course, there's a compliance component. And so with DPI, there is a mandatory benchmark component. So it also ensures that we're in alignment with the state in terms of our charter schools. And then tonight, Principal Gilbo from Appleton Public Montessori, that team's out here. But right here, I have Principal Molitor, and she's from Kaleidoscope. So she's going to present an overview of their charter contract and their presentation. And they're basically just going to summarize their performance for over the last 5 years. And they're going to highlight some of the key metrics that we talked about tonight. And then, of course, they're going to take any questions that you might have. With the idea that in 2 weeks, we can come back and be able to answer any questions we can't answer tonight, and then ask for approval for recommendation for a 5-year renewal contract. And with that, I'm going to step away. Principal Molitor is gonna bring her crew up here and she's gonna present to you guys. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alex Molitor. I'm the principal of Kaleidoscope Academy. I'm joined by a large group of board members, parents, and students tonight. So I don't know if you want them to come up or if they just want to stay there. Okay. So I've got Amy Phelan. She's a parent and a board member. Max Phelan, an 8th grade student that's been at KA since 6th grade. Then we've got Lainey French, board member. We have Mackenzie back there, who is a board member. Annette is a board member and a current art teacher. And Kyle Sargent, board member and current parent. Oh, and Mike, sorry, Mike is another parent and board member. He's got an 8th grade student at KA. So thank you for letting us present to you tonight. With our presentation, I just wanted to start with kind of our overall vision and mission statement. All right, so Kaleidoscope Academy, as a charter school, we are a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade charter school. We promote student academic, social, and emotional growth. So I really bolded those words, that social emotional growth. You'll hear a lot in our presentation how we meet the needs of each individual student that walks through our doors, how we focus on relationship building, and how we do that through our teaming process. So we care about students not just about their academics, but their social and emotional growth during their 3 years with us. And we do that specifically through project-based learning. So that's what makes us unique and sets us apart as a charter school. And personalized learning, so individualizing learning to each of our students. And over the years, we've had an increased emphasis on fine arts. So you'll hear a little bit about the arts integrated learning that we do and the training that our teachers receive to be able to do that. So I thought to give you a better glimpse of what it's like to be a student and a teacher and a parent of Kaleidoscope. I have a short identity video for you to watch. Great, so hopefully that video gave you a better idea and some videos and pictures of what it's like to be a student at Kaleidoscope and what sets us apart and what makes us unique. With that, I'll get into kind of our educational program and our core principles of what makes us unique. So these were things written into our new charter contract as well. So they kind of revolve around these 5 themes. The first one being our core principles. So we are a project-based school. Our teachers are trained in project-based learning. PBL Works, it's called, where we try to reach a gold standard of both essential project design elements and then teaching practices. So you'll see those images there with the different elements that we strive for in our projects. This is what we focus our professional learning around, how we evaluate our teachers. And it really goes back to the belief that hands-on collaborative working and learning environment is what students at the middle level need. It prepares them for their future, where they're also going to be communicating with others, working through problems, critical thinking, those types of skills. And then we have a very close collaboration with Arts Corps through UW Oshkosh, where many of our teachers, soon to be all of our teachers, are trained in arts integration. And if you're unfamiliar with arts integration, it's really teaching art standards and along with a content area standard. So you're enriching and you're enhancing what students might be learning in science by also teaching them an art form, and they're able to show their learning in a more hands-on interactive way focused on fine arts. And that could be through drama, graphic design, visual arts, music. We have a wealth of knowledge from our teachers to be able to do that. And then finally, just the focus on the whole child. So you heard a little bit in the video, we get to know students as individuals. We have a teaming structure to make sure that students have less teachers and more time with those teachers so we can get to know them and then cater the learning to their specific strengths. With our curriculum then, so in our charter contract, we specify that in some areas we follow the AASD curriculum, but we also have the autonomy to make our own choices about curriculum or do a buyout option. So for example, our 8th grade uses, or our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade uses STEM scopes for science, which does align with the district. That was something where we wanted to align with the district, but our math took a different approach where they went with Envision at the middle level, which aligned more with the high school than the other middle schools. So our teachers are really involved in that process of vetting and choosing curriculum and figuring out what's going to be the best fit for the students at Kaleidoscope based on the way that we learn there. The encore choices and electives are definitely something that set us apart as well. So the student day is divided up into thirds. 2/3 they're with their core teachers and the core subjects, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the other third, they are in encore or electives. And they get 6 choices of electives each year. Phy Ed is obviously required and some health classes required along the way. But they have a plethora of options, which really sets us apart. We're the only middle school right now offering classes like dance, theater, culinary, interior design, intro to business. And we have a process by which teachers can propose and recommend new courses to the board each year. So they're always constantly changing based on what students are interested in. So just breaking down a couple of departments, specifically Phy Ed, we offer traditional Phy Ed, but then we also offer a personal fitness class in our weight room and an outdoor pursuits class for 8th graders where they're going outside and structure building and snowshoeing. So just offering a lot more options for our students there. Like I mentioned, we have dance at all 3 levels. The unique part about our music offerings is we can flex the schedule where students can take multiple music classes each year. So they can be in band and orchestra or choir and band. And then we offer a girls choir called Finesse, a boys choir, show choir, and jazz band throughout the school day. We offer different options for art as well. So if students are really into art, they could take all 3 art classes in their schedule. They could take Art 8, 3D art, and graphic arts and design. We offer theater. Our technology offerings are unique as well. We have multiple tech and STEM offerings at 7th and 8th grade. We offer app design and robotics. And then our family consumer science, we've added classes such as interior design and culinary around the world. And next year we are adding an intro to business class. And we also offer world language, just like the middle schools, but we're fortunate to be able to offer those world language offerings every single day to our students. So that's 1/3 of the student day where they get to choose their different electives. And this goes along with our vision and mission of that student voice and choice. And if they're able to choose classes that interest them, they'll have more ownership in their learning. The other 2/3 of their day, they're in their teams for the core classes. So that's, they only have 2 teachers. So they have a teacher that teaches math and science and one who teaches humanities, which is embedding English and social studies. So each teacher, core teacher has anywhere between 50 to 60 students any given year. So they really have a lot more time with those students. They get to know them. That is something that makes us unique, where they're not switching classes every 45, 50 minutes, 5 or 6 times a day. They spend a lot of time with their teachers. We also believe strongly in being fully standards-based. So when we assess our students, we feel that true standards-based teaching and learning practices, as well as reporting, gives our students more feedback on their learning, as well as their families. So this is an example of our report card for art. So the students and families are getting a lot more feedback on specific skills for every class that their child is taking. It helps our teachers give very specific feedback on rubrics. So we don't give any letter grades. We are fully standards-based from 6th through 8th grade. And with the individualized learning as well, we have a lot of opportunities for acceleration for our students. So students can accelerate specifically in math at a faster level at Kaleidoscope if they're ready to do so. So we do follow the district process of identifying students coming to us to KA who are already advanced in math, but then we have some additional opportunities if they're showing that they're ready in math class, that they can excel at their own pace by doing some self-paced math alongside their peers in the regular 6th, 7th, and 8th grade class. So what that results in is a lot of students starting algebra and geometry when they're still in middle school. So math is a little bit more of a traditional class at Kaleidoscope. It's less project-based, but there is more opportunities for acceleration there. So looking at our previous charter goals, I will go through those 3 goals and share some data over the last 5 years. So there are 3 goals. The first one is about student achievement, measured by iReady, even though the previous contract talks about the MAP assessment. But the goal was that KA will exceed the district's average targeted growth rate in math and reading at each grade level. So there was not data collected. This comes from the forward exam, or I'm sorry, this is iReady for the 2019-20 school year due to COVID. But then I was able to pull the data from the last 4 years. And as you can see, the KA average for math is on the top row, and then the district average. And then we've got the reading for KA and the district average. So specifically with reading, we were outperforming the district average at middle level. The second goal has to do with emerging skills. So making sure that the students are leaving with some of the career and life skills that they need to be successful. So the objective here was we would teach them those life skills, and then they would assess and self-reflect on that at their time at Kaleidoscope. So for that, we pulled data from Panorama, specifically with in the 3 areas of initiative and self-direction, social and cross-cultural skills, and productivity and accountability. So these numbers are percentages of students that identify this area as a strength for themselves. So just wanting to point out specifically when it comes to productivity and accountability, our students feel like, I think because of the project-based learning and that environment that we set up, they're able to be very productive with their work. It does take a little bit of that self-motivation and drive to persevere through a project and see that through from start to finish. And then finally, the third goal on the previous contract was about family satisfaction, that we wanted to demonstrate at least 85% of students and parents would be satisfied or highly satisfied with the learning experience provided by KA. We took our data from what was the Studer survey, but now is a district survey. So we don't have percentages, but we do have some data to show that how engaged families feel on the 1 through 5 Likert scale. So over the last 5 years, do families feel that their child's learning is a high priority? Do they feel their child has opportunities to be successful? Do we maintain that safe, respectful learning environment? And would you recommend this school to other parents? So you can kind of see the data from the past 5 years there. There we go. But then I just want to highlight a few more recent data pieces. So in the last year, Kaleidoscope was the only school in the district that rose in the rankings in our state report card. And you can see there where we are in comparison with the other middle schools in the area. So this was a huge celebration for our staff. And here are just the historical report card scores over the years. And we're hoping that we're kind of in that right trajectory and trend moving forward. As compared to other middle schools too, something I'd like to point out is we have a higher percentage of students that are economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, a high population of English learners, and we're finding huge gains. So I think that is a huge point of pride for our teachers and for our school that we're able to meet the needs of all of the learners that come through our doors, especially those that might be facing some other challenges or learning differences. So this is just comparing the data from Kaleidoscope to the other middle schools, and just pointing out that, you know, we have a high percentage of students with disabilities, low socioeconomic status, English learners, and we are still seeing some really good gains. And here's the data and the breakdown from Madison and Wilson. And the previous slide too, just to point out like our percent of open enrolled students. And we take a lot of pride in that too, because we feel like when students are open enrolling to Kaleidoscope, it's for a specific reason. There's something in our charter school that they connect with and they want to be there. And then lastly, just another thing that we've really worked on with our school improvement goals and school improvement process is to break down some of our groups here and make sure that we're making higher gains with those specific groups. And so here were just some points of pride for our school from the forward test of 2024 last spring, and where we are performing at a much higher level with some of these subgroups. Specifically students with disabilities, you know, the economic disadvantage. So I think that goes to show that really wraparound support that we give our students and the individualized approach that we're taking is working for our school. And then just to give some numbers about our enrollment data over the years. So you can see that enrollment is going down for Kaleidoscope. We do traditionally draw in families from Columbus, Edison, Franklin, and Huntley. And as you know, Columbus is closing. So we're feeling the impacts of some of that lower enrollment as a district, but then we're kicking up our efforts in recruitment. So you may have noticed like the mural project that we did in collaboration with the Herb Park Neighborhood, Boys and Girls Club, STAR, DEI 2 summers ago. How can we get ourselves out in the community more? How can we share the positive messaging of what's going on at Kaleidoscope through social media, some of our newsletters and on our website, to make sure that people know what we do, how we do it a little bit differently, and if there's something that they connect with our vision and mission, that they can apply. All right, and that's it.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for all the details, but I want to take a little bit of a step back. So for the next 5 years that were under consideration for this contract, what are your greatest challenges and how you see yourself meeting that? And what are some new goals that you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as a staff, we talk a lot about some of the things we've done at Kaleidoscope were once more unique and more innovative, where now we're noticing the other middle schools are trying some of those things. So some of the teaming structures at sixth grade across the other middle schools look similar to Kaleidoscope. Some of the elective options that are being offered moving forward look similar. So we're always looking at what can we do better? What can we do to push ourselves ahead and continue to be innovative? And we have we're fortunate to have a great staff that's willing to be at the table and think of some of those things. We think the next thing, and part of, it's embedded in our new contract, is really that focus on social emotional learning. How do students interact with each other? How do they problem solve? How do they get away from their screens and their Chromebooks and come together and work collaboratively on projects? So we want to honor where we've come and who we are as a project-based arts integrated middle school, and then continue to push ourselves further. Another challenge would be enrollment, right? When we're traditionally drawing from schools that are getting smaller or closing, that is something that we have to work through. So we're looking to ramp up our marketing efforts, build stronger relationships with the 3 schools that we'll kind of traditionally draw from moving forward, which would be Huntley, Edison, and Franklin, and go to their events, invite them to our events, and just build some of those relationships sooner.
In the documents, it appears that there were no proposed changes for this contract compared to the last.
In terms of outside of the educational program, or items that I was able to edit, no.
The last page, it's just a summary of proposed changes, and it's just blank, so.
Right, so
I just wanted.
I was told if anything outside of the kind of template was changed, to not include it in that chart at the end. But there are changes and edits to the educational program. I could come back in 2 weeks with a more specific.
Looks like there's some additional information from the back row.
The contract template, the areas that are in gray are the areas that we expect that individual charter schools to alter. So that would be like the educational program and the section on the goals, because every 5 years they're going to update what they might look like. So those 2 sections tend to get tweaked, but they don't necessarily list them on the back, because that's in the gray area that they have liberty to write whatever they want in those areas. But the rest of the contract that is in white hasn't been altered in any way, which is most of the contract.
Okay, thank you. That's great. I appreciate that clarification. And I know you'd put it into the presentation. I was mistaken that I would see it on the summary sheet. So thank you for clarifying. Anything else?
I wanted to ask, that, so in your contract, in the contract for Kaleidoscope, which this is also in, I think, every other charter school contract, there's a section about recruitment and achieving a racial/ethnic balance, with the goal of having any charter schools demographics at least match the district demographics. And at least according to like my calculations, you're exceeding that in all categories. So great job. And also great job to you and your staff on movement on those opportunity gaps. So a question would be, is there a secret to the sauce, and what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're doing really just boils down to good teaching and learning practices for 12 to 14 and 15-year-olds. You know, we are following practices that are research-based, best practices for that grade level, specifically those grade levels. But in addition to that, I think we do take a lot of time to hone in on our students with special education needs and students with IEPs. And that can be across any of those other demographic groups as well. So we do a lot of making sure those students are in the least restrictive environment for most, if not all of their day. So they're accessing the core classes just like their peers fully with support. So they're not getting pulled out for special ed reading classes or math classes. They are with their peers all day long. And then our special education teachers go in the rooms to support and co-teach. So I think we've had a lot of success and traction with that model specifically.
Last year, we did some board outreach at the high schools, and I recall vividly one of the former students from Kaleidoscope Academy sharing their positive experience that they had and how well prepared they felt going into the high school. So I appreciate that. And the video kind of talked about that as well. But one of the things that I always think about with Kaleidoscope, you mentioned the 50 to 60 students that one teacher or a team of teachers would work with. And I'm always struck by that because I think how that they probably have much more of an opportunity to get to know students than if you have 100+ students. So I'm wondering if that's something that's been discussed with your staff and and what their thoughts are on that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to Nick's question too, like where are we finding that success? It's probably a little bit of a lot of these things, but when you have 2 hours a day with a student, that's a lot of time. And then you're embedding math and science, you're doing the ELA social studies. So there's so much relationship building that's there. You're not always bound by that bell schedule of like, oh, you got to go in 45 minutes. You have just so much more time to work on projects, give them the work time. The teacher is more the facilitator, walking around, checking in with students. We don't take a lot of tests. We don't fill out a lot of worksheets. It's really interactive, hands-on. When I go into classrooms, I hear mostly teacher or students talking to each other. There's not a lot of teacher talking in front of the room. So when they're able to do that, they're just able to get to know the students so much better. And then our student services team on top of that too really wraps around those kids that may need some extra support outside of the classroom.
Thank you. And then my last question has to do with the music and the fact that students are able to, if they want, take, offerings from all three music areas. And then I'm just wondering, do you ever hear what happens at the high school level? Are there students who want to continue to do that? And is that a possibility then for them?
Yeah, so we do see a lot of students from Kaleidoscope continue to high school charters, right? So Tesla, Renaissance, FCLA, a few go to ATech. I would say mostly Renaissance, and then Tesla would be second. So I think a lot of them are seeking that continuation of fine arts. But also the reality is with a freshman schedule, you're also only allowed so many electives. So maybe that means they're doing things outside of the school day to try to keep up with that. But I think it's the connections that they make over the years in middle school too that carry through.
Thank you. I just appreciate having all the detail on this and just hearing the good news. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll also just jump in and first say, like, I really appreciate it. This is really helpful to hear, first of all. So thanks for all the time you put into everything you shared tonight. One thing at least I think I noticed as you were going through things is that it seems like, at least over time, you've had more consistent success with ELA compared to math, but it does look, if I remember correctly, that math is trending also. and maybe somewhat rapidly even in like a positive direction in terms of that. So I know you had mentioned that you chose a different math curriculum compared to the other middle schools. When was that? And like what, if anything, has changed in the way that you've approached math over the last 5 years or even a little longer, if that's helpful context here too? And have you always had the opportunities for acceleration in that regard that you mentioned, since it seemed like that might be a little unique, at least in how I interpreted it?
Yeah, so we adopted Envision last year, so we're only in the second year of that adoption. But the teachers specifically wanted that because they felt like it was not only a good curriculum for those who were not accelerated, but also offered the resources that were needed for that more self-paced, self-guided acceleration pathway. So we're only in the second year there. Well, it's still new to try to really parse that out, but I do think that we're on the same, or we're on a good pathway there. There's some consistency too, then when the students go to high school, because they're going to be more used to that curriculum versus what the middle schools are using, and it changes to high school. So there's some probably implications that we're not quite aware of yet because it's only been around for 2 years. But I think when the math curriculum adoption came about, we did recognize, look, our scores are not where they need to be, so something needs to change. And you know, the teachers did a lot of that research and a lot of that work to make sure that this was going to be a good fit for the learning style that we have at KA. And like I said, it is a little bit more traditional when it comes to math teaching practices, but what makes math unique is the different avenues for acceleration.
And that was actually going to be something I was going to ask a little bit more into, and I can take this offline because I'm a former middle school math teacher myself. It's been a while, so I'm probably maybe a little bit uniquely interested in this. But the way that you described, though, the opportunities for acceleration does seem pretty unique from what I gather, given most of the time you're kind of tracked in math pretty heavily compared even to a lot of other subjects, where it's based on prior scores on normally a standardized test, maybe some other factors that kind of determine if you just got in at that cut time to go accelerate. And otherwise you're kind of not, it's a lot harder to get out of that track once you start getting put on it, I guess. So what does that look like, I guess, more in detail without going crazy in the weeds in the setting? But you know, if like you identify a student mid-year who wasn't already on the accelerated track, for instance, that might be showing, you know, promise in that way and an interest potentially, I'm assuming.
Yep.
You know, do they work on their own speed during class? Is the expectation they spend a lot of time out of class? What kinds of supports are they given, both, you know, tools and human supports in that process?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually
Might be able to.
yeah. Max, do you want to chime in?
So
You want to come up here?
when I was in 7th grade, I like a quarter way through the year, my teacher said that it might be a good idea for me to do accelerated math. So I was connected with our 8th grade math teacher at KA, and I did math online for at an accelerated pace for the rest of the year. And I got as close as I could to finish, and even with like being not like close to finishing but not all the way there, our teachers, like the 8th grade math teacher, was still okay with that. And now for algebra, which is the class I'm in now, our teachers like knew that for some kids it was harder to do just like online, so they made it work, and they can now teach algebra in person too. So like we'll switch every week between 8th grade and algebra. So there's two math teachers that will switch, and they're both like approved for high school teaching and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he said it great, but it's not like, right, you don't have that cutoff date. If teachers are recognizing like skill and some of the, not just the math skills, but the self-motivation to do it at any time in the year. Well, I should say up to spring break of the previous year, they can recommend that the student would start accelerating at their own pace. And there are some pre-assessments that they take, but then there's like checkpoints along the way where they're still having that teacher interaction. And a lot of times it's just in the 7th grade math classroom that they're working on 8th grade math. If it works out, they can go to that 8th grade math teacher at that time for feedback.
It's not working.
Thank you. It's really helpful to hear your perspectives. Thanks for coming up to tell us that as well. So it sounds like you're able to just basically work on it on your own pace. You spend your time in class and then can work as much as you're willing and able to outside of that. You have access to it the whole time and then can come back to your teachers, whether 7th or 8th grade, for in-demand support as you have questions along the way, which is really cool. That's exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Max.
I had just one more follow-up question. As you think. Microphones are, is yours working? No. Maybe it's a signal and actually, oh, here we go. So just a follow-up question, as you think about the contract going forward for the next 5 years, beyond actually signing the contract, what else can the district or the board do for you to help Kaleidoscope be successful over the next 5 years?
I think just having a general knowledge of what we do is helpful in the sense that when you're talking with parents, when you're talking with community members, and you feel like this school would be a great fit for a particular student, to encourage them to reach out. So I think just, you know, your knowledge of how we do things a little bit differently could help connect us with some of the families and the students that could benefit from what we do at Kaleidoscope.
I have a question. Thank you for this presentation. Just so I'm clear on this, on slide 14 there, it says at least 85% of the students and parents will be satisfied or highly satisfied in the annual spring survey. And then on the engagement survey here, it says there's 65 participants. What are we looking at in terms of that 85%? Is it 85% of that 65, or is it 85% of the enrollment number?
Right. I mean, ideally, I would like more parents to engage in the survey. But I think, right, if from the participants that we would have at least 85% satisfied. I do have a board member currently kind of crunching those numbers to get them into percent. If you'd like me to provide that to you. Because I know this is just on a Likert scale, so it's hard to see if that goal was reached.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you have many students who might start at Kaleidoscope in 7th or 8th grade? Typically, is it what sort of a transition would a student have if they were moving in after 6th grade?
Yeah, so now that 6th grade is across all the middle schools, we are seeing less of, we used to have just like 2 or 3 teams at 6th grade and then go up to 4 teams at 7th grade. But now that 6th grade is across all middle schools, we're seeing a more consistent, they're coming for 3 years. So like our application window just ended on Friday, we only got 11 applicants for 7th grade. Where in the past we might be closer to 50 to 60. So I think it'll be a good thing that our students and families will be there for 3 years. And that's part of, you know, with the transition of the district to go middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And then 2 weeks.
Yep.
We'll see you again, or at least Ebony will see you if you're not here. Wonderful, thank you.
Want me over here? Sure. You handle control of the
Like that.
Oh, fun.
Great. Any other jobs you can do while you're here? I mean, there are a few things that need to be done, but thank you. Okay. Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Moy, and I am the current president of Appleton Public Montessori Association, and I'm joined today by Cassie Gilbo, our school administrator, and Maureen Russell, our Montessori interventionist. It's an honor to represent Appleton Public Montessori today for this renewal, as our school is approaching its 20th year as a charter within the Appleton Area School District. Currently, APM is a 4K through 6th grade charter school. Began within Johnston Elementary in 2005 with 1st through 6th grade classrooms. It has developed into what it is today in large part due to the consistent and dedicated effort of a small group of educators. The teachers at our school are skilled Montessori experts, some of whom have decades of experience teaching at the school. They offer an authentic Montessori education in the Fox Valley. The school itself is also shaped in great part by the families that attend there. Some of our existing families have been with the school for 15 or more years as their children have grown through our programs. One component of the Montessori model and our specific charter is an element of family engagement and participation in the educational process. And so the school is structured in such a way that there are many opportunities through events, committees, and different initiatives that engage family participation through parents and relatives to be involved in creating the supportive school community. Very quickly, I do want to go over two elements of kind of what is Montessori, what does it look like, just for a little bit of a picture before passing it off to my colleagues here. So the first aspect that I'd like to touch on is what we refer to as the prepared environment. The prepared environment in Montessori is a carefully designed space, which in our case is the classroom, that provides materials, hands-on materials for our students to interact with at developmentally appropriate levels. So these engage the students with through their senses that then create this opportunity for concepts to go from these very concrete things into more abstract ideas. And we see this in each of the curricular areas. By preparing this environment in such a way, it allows children to have a sense of freedom, or as Maria Montessori calls it, this opportunity to act on their individual initiative. And so this prepared environment is like these guardrails that children are able to be free within, that enable them to remain purposeful and productive in their own educational process. And so that is one of the really crucial aspects of how Montessori looks and how it's done. The second thing I wanted to bring up is that our school is structured, our classrooms are multi-aged. So we have 3 grade bands that exist together, 1st through 3rd, 4th through 6th, and then our children's house is just 4K and 5K, so that's kind of not what I'm referring to here specifically, but our in the multi-age classrooms, we have 10 students from each grade level that move through what we refer to as a 3-year cycle. The 3-year cycle is designed very purposefully so that students have time and stability to develop independence, confidence, and capacities as the time moves on. So each skill or each year introduces new skills, new challenges, and students then grow in their sense of belonging and significance within the community as they learn through their alpha, beta, and then gamma years with each cycle. So the prepared environment, the multi-age classrooms, that offer students the opportunity to learn to navigate a new social environment outside of their homes. It also provides for them a sort of roadmap of developing and maintaining respectful relationships. This is sort of built into the structures of how our school is set up. And then one thing that is really, I think, special about our school is that it provides through these things an opportunity to support kids exactly where they are in terms of their academic needs and social needs. and providing the support to do that. So we're extremely proud when we see our graduates emerge from Appleton Public Montessori as very confident and capable students as they move into their middle school and future educational experience. We did provide a very short video. Yeah, we're ready for. It's very brief, just for a glimpse of kind of what this looks like in real life for us.
Start on the second slide. Ready? Is it just the forward button that would start it?
Last week. There we go.
All right, this mission was developed 20 years ago, and I'll just read what it says on the screen. Appleton Public Montessori seeks to nurture the full potential of every child through the presence of the Montessori philosophy in all learning environments, encouraging intrinsic motivations and instilling a love of learning now and for a lifetime.
So we're going to just take a look at, quick look at our goals for the past 5 years. The first goal was students will be at or above the district average in reading after completing the 3-year full academic cycle that Courtney talked about. Here I have, we use the district iReady scores, assessments to track this goal. The first column is the overall score of all of our students. The second column is that 3rd grade year after a full cycle, a 3-year cycle. And then the last column is the 6th grade year. We used green to show that we met the goal, and the one that's yellow is at the district goal. Goal 2 was the same goal, only in math. Again, after having completed that 3-year cycle, so they had a chance to get through all the curriculum. This one has the same structure as the first one, and you can see that green shows that we met all of the goals.
Our third goal was written back at the time of the last renewal when our board was using what's referred to as the HOPE survey. During COVID, numerous things were shaken up during that time, and a decision was made to use the district panel. Can you go to the next slide? It's the
Sure,
family
sure.
engagement survey rather than the paid HOPE survey that the board had been paying for up to that point. So there was a pivot that happened in terms of the third goal. So what we ended up collecting information on was the response to the question, I would recommend this school to other parents, rather than specifically a question on the Virtues Project, which is still utilized at the school, the Virtues Project itself, but the survey getting feedback from parents is not and has not been since 2020. So this is how we've interpreted the responses to this question as a positive response, given that 4 out of 5, or given exceeding a 4 in this measure is a positive response from our parents.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I made them green.
So she made them green.
Another huge celebration for us are state report card scores. We're very happy with those scores, but 2 additional highlights is that last year was the first year that we had a target group score reported. So what's amazing about that for us, I know, thanks, Kay. We're constantly looking for diversity and diversifying our student population. So to be able to report on that is wonderful. And the second highlight of that is that score was 81.1. One of the challenges that we come up against is committing or maintaining our commitment to Montessori. So I'm just going to read this slide. We remain steadfast in honoring the integrity of the Montessori method, ensuring that our practices reflect Montessori core principles of independence, respect, and hands-on discovery. With the district and state initiatives that are coming at us right now, it was really important for us to find our Montessori lens and hold strong to that. It was a little bit of a barrier for us, and some might even say a threat. But the next few sections are going to show some of the things that we did to overcome that barrier.
So in response to some of the requirements that were coming from the state, especially with Act 20, we, through the generous grant from Appleton Education Foundation, we were able to hire a Montessori reading specialist who we contracted with her, and she came and worked with us and did professional development with us for an entire school year. And she was sort of our mentor and our guide to help us really look at our Montessori framework and look at our curriculum and how we could look at the body of research that was the science of reading, and then looking at the similarities with the Montessori method, because of course, I shouldn't say of course, they're very closely aligned. The science of reading and the Montessori method are both scientifically based. They both follow a logical, systematic, explicit progression of teaching and learning. And in Montessori classrooms, as Courtney mentioned, all our students use multisensory materials as they learn to read and write. We support educational differentiation, looking at the children's need for independence, and we're always highly mindful of literacy and language development from a young age on. So the way we were able to stay true to our Montessori tenets was by working with Linda, and all of our staff are highly trained in Montessori methodology. Our language and cultural curriculum in particular are very rich in all the areas of language, the phonemic awareness, the phonics, fluency, and especially vocabulary and comprehension. So with Dr. Zankowski, she worked with us to sort of reflect and then refine our curriculum and each staff member was able to really refine their craft and being able to implement structured literacy in a Montessori way. We implemented new assessment practices and new instructional practices, and it really was a wonderful experience for our entire community. In addition, as serving as an interventionist, I was honored to be able to participate with the other interventionists in the district with the CISA 6 coaches who helped us also look at our practices and intervention in a structured literacy way. So we were able to kind of take all of that learning, especially the high leverage routines that CISA 6 provided, and all of our teachers were able to embrace the best practices and structured literacy to meet the needs of our learners. So one big shift we made, in addition to the things I just mentioned, was to incorporate daily interactive read alouds, utilizing the CISA 6 routine. And that was all aligned with our Montessori cultural curriculum. And this practice led to us developing our learning walks.
So learning walks are designed to collect instructional data in order to plan for professional development. And knowing that our district had a plan for professional development that we might not be able to tap into, we wanted to give ourselves a way to see, engage what we needed to learn. So after we met with Linda, we generated collective commitments, as Maureen said, that were based in science of literacy and our Montessori approach, and we implemented the learning walk to support our growth. The key to our learning walk, though, is that we bring teachers along. So for 5 days in a row, we bring one teacher, they get to see 5 different classrooms, and we reflect on all of the positive things we see. So we keep it really positive, but it was an immediate impact. So, you know, we're gathering this data, we're collecting this data for a long-term professional development plan, but the immediate impact is what the teachers get inspired to do right away in their classroom. And some of the things kind of just like spread like rapid fire, and kind of a silly one was using the, I always call it the hover cam. The hover cam for their read aloud, you know, yeah. One teacher was using it and now all of the teachers use it, you know, and it was just, oh, we're gonna use that too. So it was inspiring for us to see everybody else get inspired as well. Another quick little rapid fire thing that happened was you're doing the interactive read aloud and then you're trying to transform that into what we call a shelf work in a Montessori classroom. So the teachers seeing the other teachers and how they did that really inspired them to then use it right away in their classroom.
One significant achievement of the last 5 years is that Appleton Public Montessori received an award and a designation as a state school of character by the Wisconsin Education or Character Education Partnership for a specific practice that is done in the E1 classrooms, which is the 1st through 3rd grade. So they won a Promising Practice Award for what is referred to as the Work Journal Virtues Reflection. Every week, each E1 1st through 3rd grade student is asked to reflect on themselves and write in detail some specific thing that they did that week that embodied or exemplified a virtue that they have learned about. And the Virtues Project that has been a part of the Montessori School is a global initiative that inspires the practice of virtues with this understanding that character is comprised of virtues that live in potential in every human. But in order for those to grow and come out, they need to be identified and worked with and talked about and practiced. And so this organization, the Wisconsin Character Education Partnership, offers acknowledgements and designations and awards for schools that are doing promising practices. And so this was really exciting to have this has been a long-standing practice at Appleton Public Montessori. And they just received this really special acknowledgement for the importance and significance of that work, because the act of self-reflecting is really important in addition to being able to identify virtues in others. We have a whole thing with virtues vouchers where they can say if their friend was exhibiting perseverance by finishing a work. But, you know, when you're doing it on yourself, that was something that was seen as outstanding. So I'm proud to say that we received that in the last 5-year cycle.
Another exemplary thing I think about our school, and I know I'm fortunate to be one of the staff members, but all of our APM staff have a Montessori credential, which is a very rigorous and comprehensive process to get the degree, and all, including Cassie, except for one person has their master's degree as well in Montessori education. So we have an incredibly dedicated and committed staff. We have fantastic paraprofessionals, which without we wouldn't be able to implement our Montessori curriculum. It's really set up to have a Montessori guide or teacher along with a classroom assistant. So each teacher has an assistant assigned to that classroom. So they get to know the students really well. And our role as educators there is to observe students, identify their needs, and respond with the appropriate individualized guidance and instruction. And we feel that we empower students by establishing trusting relationships, respectful relationships that nurture their responsibility and joy in their own learning. And like Courtney mentioned earlier, all the areas of APM and the classrooms in particular have rich environments, prepared environments that create natural opportunities for the children to be independent, to be accountable, and to be good citizens. And with our guidance, our students work to meet the rigorous learning objectives, and they're able to pursue their own inquiry at the same time. As a result of us focusing on the children and their individuality and their development, they're confident, they're intrinsically motivated, they're responsible, creative, cooperative, and respectful, and they really emerge ready for whatever life has for them after our school.
That's how we end the week on Fridays at 3:10.
Could you talk a little bit about your enrollment and your admissions process?
Yes, so we, since we're a Wisconsin charter, we have a lottery system. And our enrollment is, like she said, 10 students at every grade in every classroom. So we can have up to 160 students that can fit in our school. And each year our waiting list is over 100 as well. Does that kind of answer your question?
We do also have applicants from the Fox Valley and beyond. We have families in De Pere and Neenah, and so we do draw kind of widely from the surrounding area as a public Montessori option, as that's somewhat, it's rare in our area for that to be available.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up kind of directly from that. Waiting list is long, and I can't help but notice that the demographics do not reflect the district currently. And so how does, okay, so can you just talk a little bit about the challenge in the demographics of your enrollment and what specific outreach efforts have been done in the past 5 years and what your thoughts are on how to improve things for the next 5 years?
We do have significant challenges not being a neighborhood school in a neighborhood because we do, and again, as I said, we appeal to families from all over. We have a ton of interest in our school but we are limited in, we literally pick a name out of a Ziploc baggie during our lottery, and that determines who gets those places. So the only way to change the demographic of the school is to cast a wider net of who is applying. And so one of the multiple things are being done and have been done in terms of building partnerships with different organizations, with Lawrence University and the YMCA. We have another one I wrote
Appleton
down.
Public Library.
Appleton Public Library provides different, we work with them for various things for our students, and then also just helping be brand ambassadors to our school as we are out in the community and talking in different spaces to be able to, I guess, encourage additional applicants. We participate in the charter fairs and the early education fairs. We're engaged with the charter council. We have spent a lot of effort in trying to increase the socioeconomic diversity of our school, if not racial and ethnic diversity, in whatever ways we can. It's been on our radar as a board, and we're always open to additional suggestions and ideas. I have had people say you should open another campus, and there's various like barriers to all of these things, but certainly having a school within a walkable distance to places does, I mean, as I think is probably a factor with KA, they're doing a great job, and there's a neighborhood that is able to, attend. And so I feel like there are certainly barriers, but also an openness and a desire to continue to take steps so that we can reflect the reality of the district, even though we are appealing to much like wider Fox Cities area. I may have missed a portion of your question. If so, please.
I do think there's a second part to that too, and what we do when the students come to us. We are continually partnering with the district DEI program, and our board is committed to having a DEI committee on our charter board to make sure that we have the windows, we have the mirrors, we have the resources available so that when students come to us, they also spread that to their friends and family, and that it's a safe place for all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do appreciate the responses, and this is less about Appleton Public Montessori specifically and more about our charter school program in general, which is that we continue to include this in our contracts, which I think is very important. And I support that. And very few of our charters are able to actually achieve that balance. And so I don't like having something in there where everybody, I'm not saying this is happening here, where it's just like, yeah, we tried, but we can't really do anything about it, and then just moving on. And I'm not saying that's what your response is to this question, but just as we continue to go through these charter renewals, if this is going to be included in the contracts, I do want to see actual produced reports, even if it's like a simple paragraph about outreach efforts. Like, that's what it says we have to do, and I would like to actually see. I do trust you when you say that this is the work you've been doing, but I want to see it on paper too.
So I'll ask the same question I asked for Kaleidoscope, but by the way, congratulations on your results. It's really good work. Happy to see that. So as we think forward to the next 5 years, how can the district best help support you? What do you need from the board? What do you need from the district? What are your challenges? And what are some of your goals for new programs?
I think one of our challenges will continue to be to maintain our Montessori focus, because now we have Act 20 with science of literacy. We know that math is coming down too, or coming to us. So it will be important for us to stay true to our Montessori methods, because that's what's leading to student success, we believe. And then similar to what Alex said, whatever positive publicity that you all can share with the community, that we have a great space and that we're open to everybody, and we need your support that way. Definitely.
If there are also any clear actions that we could take that you know of or could suggest, we would be open to feedback on how we could improve in terms of, reflecting the district. in terms of diversity.
Right.
Anything else?
So you mentioned this, and I know it's way off topic, but I'll just ask it because we're doing very, very well. And we're in one specific area, so it's hard for some families to get to the school. Have we thought about another campus in another setting that's maybe more towards the central city to open up that Montessori? So I know it's a very specific approach and it obviously works extremely well for some children's and families. Is that a possibility? Have you ever thought about that?
The board over the years has considered various options, and there are urban Montessori models that have been effective in Milwaukee and Chicago for decades. I mean, there are models working for students, families, educators. Now, for our board to do such a thing, we would need a much different financial stability situation, because just for the board to be financially responsible for what we have is something that is our current goals, are to figure out what is a financial sustainability plan for our tiny place. So given perhaps, I mean, it's absolutely a viable educational option for any environment. And it is, I've talked to people in other cities who are involved either as parents of Montessori kids in Milwaukee public schools or it's a public charter Montessori in Milwaukee. And it is, I mean, it's a viable option. It is not a realistic thing for our current board to consider given finances. However, who knows what in the upcoming years, what might be possible, as we are having, an initiative to get our endowment figured out so that we can support what we have and then begin to look at what might become possible.
Just on a personal anecdote, my neighbor actually has their two children in Montessori and speak very, very highly. Their students are having just a wonderful experience. So thank you for that.
Just two things. I appreciated, well, three things. I appreciated your detailed report on the different strategies that you're using, and in particular, the learning walks, just having the opportunity for staff members to watch other staff members teach and how powerful that is, and focusing on the positive. I was very intrigued by that and wondered, how often do you do that? Is it a once a year or?
So we've been able to go through a cycle where all have been able to do it and then pull that data together. Now we're looking at starting our next cycle, so it will be something that we will keep doing as a practice in our building, because has been so inspiring and successful and helpful.
Thank you. That was just really, really exciting to hear. And then my last question, it has to do with sixth grade and then transitioning to seventh grade. And given the change in the district, how are you using that to transition your students?
So going into this year, we only had one sixth grader leave. Last year, so going into this year, we had 6 out of 20 leave. And then I can provide that for you if you want but it's been, after COVID, we had a bunch leave, and then 22, 23, we only had 3 leave. But I think what you really want to know is this year, with the sixth grade everywhere, we only had 1 student leave. So that was great. And I talked to Alex a lot about our students going, we might have the 11 students that she got in 7th grade at Glasgow. Yeah. We usually have about a third that go to Einstein, a third that go to Kaleidoscope, and then a third that kind of spread out Valley New Schools. Our 6th grade parents kind of know, like, all right, my child is ready for a more traditional middle school. Hit sports, hit the music, hit the band, hit all the co-curriculars. or they really like the project base and we still want all those options. So we're going to try Kaleidoscope, or I'm, deeply passionate about an individualized learning instruction. So I'm going to try Valley New School. So we have those talks, and last year we brought back a middle school student from each of the middle schools to talk to our families about how it's going, what they've learned, how APM has prepared them. And that was also another wonderful chat with the families and the students.
Do you know how many of your students are open enrolled from out of the district?
That is a great question. I don't know, but I'll get back to you on that.
Be great. Thank you.
One question, back to the enrollment question. So I know you have a long waiting list, but I'm assuming most of those are for the earliest, like kindergarten and 4K. Do you find that when you have a student maybe leave, in the middle grades, that people also apply and you fill those seats normally, or do those normally end up going vacant because you don't have enough kids applying, in second and beyond?
Yeah, we have some attrition in the older grades. Still, once you get to 5th grade, it gets a little bit harder, but if you have a sibling, that's usually what happens there. Yeah, but we have pretty consistent enrollment, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, even into 4th grade.
Yeah,
In the past, oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, it's almost more difficult to get in with an older student because there aren't as many spots open, but we usually have 1 or 2 people move away or something happens. And then you're right, like sometimes it's a sibling, but we don't usually have difficulty filling those spots until maybe 5th or 6th grade, I would say.
Yeah.
In the past 2 years where I participated in the lottery, there have been no openings left after we've gone through the lottery. There have always been interested people to fill the seats available, plus a very lengthy wait list for 4K, 5K in 1st grade, and then shorter for the subsequent grades. But again, there's always somebody on the wait list for all of it, although we don't accept in 6th grade just because of the method and the structure.
Sure. And how many people do you tend to let off the wait list every year, roughly? Like, is it normally that a few might get off the wait list, or is there
5 or less.
5 or less? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, you're good. I didn't think. No, you're good. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we will hear more in the future. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, which I don't think that there are, we will follow up to any responses or any questions tonight and then come back in 2 weeks. Any questions at that time, and then bring a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are going to move on. Now we are on 10C, results monitoring our 2.1.3 science. The board, this was a topic at our work session on February 19th, and we did spend quite a bit of time discussing it. Anyone want to share any thoughts or? I mean, the report was submitted as, sorry, I'm just getting it pulled up, that failing to make reasonable progress. We talked about the reasons for that. This is not a lack of setting high expectations, but it's actually the fact that we are monitoring. This is kind of making us take a serious look at what will be done in the future. And it's not about a lack of high expectations on the district part, but.
I was just gonna say, I know that this is a topic in the work session, and we don't stream the work sessions, and we don't get a lot of attendance, so I think you covered some of it, but I don't know if there's any update that can be given just for the public more generally about kind of some of the specifics that you're giving, what actions are being taken on the results, that kind of thing. Dr. McQuaid or Superintendent Arches.
Yeah, so to President Eggert's point, this failure to meet standards that we've set for monitoring within science really isn't about having low standards there. It's been much more about we monitor, and when we're not meeting standards, it forces us to react. And so the bigger piece is on how we're going to react. So we continue to stand behind the right work that has just begun with regard to making sure that our kids are able to read. And when they get into middle level and high school, where we are monitoring our science scores, that they're reading at grade level. That's one area. Another area that became very clear when we looked at the data is we do a scope and sequence and spiraling of our curriculum in 4 different areas of science, and we try to teach 4 different areas of science in 6, 7, and 8, which ends up putting our teachers in a very difficult situation because now they have to have great content expertise in 4 different areas. So what's going to come from that is instead of having 4 areas, we're going to have 1 area where they can focus and make sure that the standards are spiraled throughout the 3 grade levels. What's going to be particularly helpful about that effort is going to be, we believe, the physical science preparation that'll be in 8th grade will benefit our students who are in biology in 9th grade. And biology has been a concern for our district for a couple of years. So we've got an answer to that now. We are going through an adoption. We are looking at what other districts are doing with the materials that we are considering for adoption. And we are going to make sure that we're modeling our work after districts that are having more success than we are.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really helpful for the public to understand that we're not being complacent about these things, that we're taking concrete steps to try to address it.
Any other comments or discussion of this monitoring report? If,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Question just based, and I wasn't here during the work session, so apologies if some of this was addressed there. Based on what you just described though in the middle grades, going from 4, I guess we'll say content or subject areas within science down to 1, does that mean that like they're gonna be hit, you know, more directly each year and we're getting to 3 of them over the 3 middle grades, or all grades are going down from 4 to 1? Or could you just shed a little more light on what you were describing there?
Yeah, so what's going to happen, instead of trying to hit skill standards that are present in science over 4 different curricular areas, we're going to focus on 1 curricular area at each level and scope and sequence that with our student needs at high school, so that our teachers become more expert in an area where they can be better resources to our students, and then our students get more practice in a particular content area with the science skills that they need to have success at the high school level. Does that answer the question?
I think so, but I'm going to state it back a little bit.
Okay.
And make sure. I don't know what the 4 categories are, so I'm just going to use ones that I remember from high school. But let's say currently we're asking 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade teachers to teach physical science, some chemistry standards, some biology standards, and some physics standards. What we're moving towards is focusing on only 1 of those in 6th grade, and then a different one in 7th grade, and a different one in 8th grade. So instead of getting some of all of it each year, we're going a little deeper into one of the specific subject areas in each grade and thinking about how they scope and sequence over all the grades rather than within each grade.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments on this? Go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to also mention that as part of the discussion at the work session, Dr. McQuaid did share that middle school teachers are going to be involved in this process. And we'll be looking at other schools as well. So I really believe that that's an important piece of it too, that the individuals who will be teaching will be a part of that decision. So I really do appreciate that, and just the urgency with which you are approaching it, and wanting to make sure that these changes are implemented for the 2025-26 school year. So thank you for that.
Okay, one more time. Any other comments or questions? If not, then I'd ask for a motion to approve the results monitoring report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call on that, please.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Kay Eggert,
Aye.
and James Bacon.
Aye.
Then results monitoring are 2.1.4 civics and social studies. This also was a topic at the work session on February 19th. Anyone want to?
I'm gonna have the same question here, like just if we can get a summary on the discussion and the approaches that are taking.
Yeah, so what is different with our social studies than most of our other areas that we monitor is we have very good local assessments there. So we are not, when it comes to the document-based questions, comparing ourselves to anyone else except our own progress. And we are early on in the monitoring process here, so we don't have a lot of longitudinal data for it. But what's fantastic about it is we use a process called the Pause and Reflect protocol for developing assessments that are less biased than sometimes the traditional nationally normed tests are. And what we're finding is in skills of reading and analyzing and writing, which are transferable skills to the rest of their lives, our students by and large are doing well. We do have some gap areas. They're not as pronounced as in when we look at some of the nationally normed tests or some with forward our state tests, which is another sign that it seems to be the right work for our students and the right assessment. We need to continue to get better at teaching reading to not only our elementary school age students, but also our secondary school students, which is a little bit more challenging because we're not at a universal level diving into basic phonics and phonemic awareness in the secondary area. So what we've done is we've started to train our teachers in sheltered instructional observational protocol, which is a research-based practice that allows our students to have access to the content areas. And we've started that work at all three high schools, and we are phasing it in at our middle schools as well. So we're going to have a uniform approach to how we help our students who are struggling with language in the secondary areas gain access to the content and to the curriculum. Again, I would point to that continued work and a couple more years of study of our DBQ process. I think that we're going to see some trends upward. If we graduate our students able to read at grade level and to write well and to analyze, in this case, primary source documents, but it could be a primary source document could be a graph or a table in science in another area. We will serve them extremely well.
Great, thank you.
Is there a motion to accept wait, did I already ask for this motion? Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the report as submitted?
So moved.
Second? I'll second it. Okay, roll call, please.
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
James Bacon, Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
and Kay Ager.
Aye. Okay, we are going to move to 10E, which is policy 120. This was on our it's item of information at our last board meeting. This is a revision of a current policy that we have. And this more aligns with, it's updated and more aligns with, it's updated. At the time, last week, we had a question, 2 weeks ago, regarding the language elementary and high school. And so went back, state statutes says, identifies or defines that the first 8 grades are elementary, referred to as elementary grades. Where reference is made to elementary, this also includes kindergarten. When the reference is made to kindergarten, that also includes 4K and 5K. And then the last 4 grades are high school. So we would like to leave it as written because that is actually how it is defined in state statute. So you can read it all. So multiple references, yes. So with that, we're bringing this back as now an item for consideration to be approved, so we can actually have this policy updated. Is there a motion to approve?
So I will move to accept the revised policy 120.
Any more discussion or questions on it? Then roll call, please, Kayla.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
and Kay Ager.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move to 10F. Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, good evening. I'm here to speak about 411-4. As many of you are aware, on January 10th, we were notified by the Department of Education that Title IX 2024 was no longer in place and that all schools would need to enact Title IX 2020 as a further notice. After consulting with Van Briesens, the legal firm that our district consults with, we were advised to pause 411-4 until further notice.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt what you're saying, but we will keep the policy. A lot of work went into creating this policy and making sure that it was really accurate in reflecting the 2024 guidelines. And so we don't want to just get rid of the policy, but we won't be able to follow a lot of it had to do with reporting and the processing and the investigation of concerns. But we will still have a non-discrim policy because we had those previously. We're just going to pause 411-4.
Yes, ma'am.
Use the guidelines from our 411-2 and 1.
411-1.
411-1.
Yes, so what the guidance was is that we would fall back to 2020 Title IX, which is covered under our 411-1 and 411-2. Within that, we still have state statutes in which we would still be able to provide supports as well for bullying and harassment. I will just say I know we don't have it up, but if we think of 411-1 and you look at the first sentence, it says students. We will protect our students in our district. And so any student that is in our district will be protected from bullying and harassment.
I don't know if you're in a position to be able to answer this or not, but are there provisions within the 2024 policy that were legally prohibited from enforcing because of these legal outcomes? Like, I'm trying to determine if the 2024 policy is more restrictive than the existing policy, we're prevented from doing that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe I can answer it, and I believe that I'm right when I answer this. I think that there are three major differences between 20 and 24. The major difference, the primary one is the definition of sex, in which 2024 was more broad. I think the second biggest difference is the grievance process, in which going in and having a protocol of how it's reported as opposed to hearing and then searching out to provide supports. I think the third biggest difference is the jurisdiction of whether it's not in our four walls, but whether it is anywhere that could then be brought into our four walls. Those are the three major differences that we're seeing here. We worked through 2020 until 2023 and a half. We are working again just to ensure that our team is back up to point on the 2020 guidelines so that we're still able to provide those supports for our staff and students.
I guess maybe if I rephrase it, if we wanted to continue doing those things, we can't.
Well, I guess the different question would be would we be willing to face litigation? I can speed if I want to, but if the speed limit says 75, I stay below 75. At this point, we have guidance from the Department of Ed that's saying we will follow 2020. We do depend on federal funds as well. So at this point, we're looking at, again, I remind you of 411-1, just all students. If you're a student or an employee of our district, we're obligated to protect you.
Okay, I would just like to speak a little bit on this topic. So I am a non-binary individual. I ran as an openly LGBTQ individual. I work for an LGBTQ nonprofit. I work with other LGBTQ individuals every day who are very concerned about decisions that are being made at the federal level. And I've sought out many perspectives, anything I could find about this issue. And I firmly believe that a no vote against this in protest would send the wrong message and be the wrong idea. Because a no vote in protest would imply that trans and non-binary students in our district no longer are protected from discrimination. And that is not true. Legal precedent in our district as of this moment still says that the older version of Title IX protects students based on gender identity. And that's from Ash versus Whitaker in 2017. And then that was reaffirmed again in a case in 2023. So our students who are trans or non-binary are still protected from discrimination, even if this amendment passes and we're no longer practicing the 411.4 Title IX rules. I personally think, if I were in charge of everything, I would love to keep the 2024 version of Title IX for a variety of reasons, because of the explicit expansion of the definition of sex at the federal level, because of the additional protections for survivors of sexual violence, which, procedures for reporting were enhanced in order to improve that process for survivors. And unfortunately now we have to go back to a less best reporting mechanism. And also, I would prefer to have a Title IX that explicitly talked about the rights of pregnant students. However, we can't. And voting against this would imply that our students have no protections or staff have no protections. And that's not true. Not only because of the court cases, also guidance from DPI currently still says that we have to follow state law, which explicitly calls out sexual orientation and implies gender identity and gender expression through the interpretation of the courts of appeals and potentially even decisions that were made at the Supreme Court level. There's still a lot of confusion. Anyone who's LGBTQ plus in our area or in the country, if you are concerned about things that are happening, if you are concerned about losing your rights, that's valid and it is scary. But this decision right now that we're about to make, it has nothing to do with that, with what's going on at the federal level. This decision that we are going to take is not connected to any of the executive orders that have been issued by the federal government. And I guess the last point for now is that none of the executive orders, as far as I understand, have the force of law. In fact, the one that directly talks about ending, quote, radical indoctrination in public schools only directs federal departments to create a strategy. It does not, it's not law. It doesn't have the force of law. So we have to follow our laws, which are the Seventh Court of Appeal precedent, the state student non-discrimination law, and the interpretations of that law through time that are in the Wisconsin Administrative Code and in decisions from courts. So, for any trans student who is listening, you still have the right to be protected from bullying and from discrimination. You have the right to access the restroom that aligns with your gender identity. You cannot be told to use a gender neutral restroom. You have the right to do that in Appleton area schools. And this decision is not going to change that.
Is there, so we are going to need to act on this amendment. To amend. It's
Yeah,
just
it's at the-
awkward language because, yes.
At the
but-
top, there's some language that we were advised to use as a result of the federal court decision in Tennessee versus Cardonia, 24 CV 00072, Ed Code Kentucky 2025, which vacated the 2024 Title IX regulations. Please note that the 2024 Title IX regulations below are not in effect. Accordingly, the 2020 Title IX regulations are in effect until further notice, which is located in policy 411.1 and 411.2.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve this amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? I'll second that. So any other discussion, comments, questions?
I'd just like to thank you, Nick, for sharing your thoughts and really highlighting the fact that all of our students will continue to have protection in the AASD.
Okay, anything else? Roll call, please.
Ping Tao.
Aye.
Kay Eggert,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
James Bacon, Nick Ross,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
and Chris Sauter.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to some more policies. Policy adoption 822. Sherry. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any other questions or discussion on this? I know we went through it a couple weeks ago, but anything? Okay, then roll call, please, Kayla.
James Bacon, Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Kay Agert,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
and Ping Tao.
Okay, and then 10H is policy 823.
So policy 823, we did have a policy for access to public records, and based on the WASB recommendations, we made some revisions to that policy that we went through a couple of weeks ago. And we would recommend the revision and update to this policy.
Motion to approve?
I'll move approval of policy 823.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Kim.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Peng Tao, James Bacon, Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Chris Sauter, and Kay Agert.
Aye. Okay, 10I, Board Policy Committee update. Just really, it's very brief. The committee continues to do the work. We're planning, just to note that as we are reviewing all of the policies, even if there are some policy we're not recommending to make any changes to, we think that they are fine as submitted. We are going to just ask that we will add a revised, reviewed, not revised, 'cause we're not review date. But I think then we still do need to bring them for action. So we'll probably group those, and certainly if you, when you read them, if you think, oh, that we really should work on this, the committee could always, would take it back, so. And then the committee is going to continue the work, and we'll have more to come on that, so. Takes, anything else, Nick, or Pang, on that?
The Community Linkages Committee set the student and staff linkages dates. I sent that to Kayla over the weekend, so the rest of the board should be seeing those dates very shortly. They're pretty well set, but there's a lot of board members that can't make any date. Please let the committee know, because we can always move that a little bit, but you should have those dates soon.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Then it takes us to the end of our business tonight. Next meeting, Monday, March 10th, 6 o'clock. So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye, any opposed? All right, thank you all, good night.